concerned to having an income tax policy as is happening in the counties. I just want to understand maybe what are the specific proposals that you are making to Treasury, that wasn't that much clear in your presentation. And number two, you also talked about the labor and walk us through the process, and for the trend that we've been seeing, what has been the stumbling block in them achieving that? Because 5 years is really way too long. Then the last one is workers. Then on government using outdated financial statements, perhaps the Director General happens to be your member. What will it take for perhaps government
licenses? Because we don't want to be giving 5 licenses to the practitioners, to the accountants. We want to have a license which just specifies. And I think you will appreciate that accountancy is one of the broader professions. And there are a lot of specializations. You can have more than 10 specializations within the accountancy profession. So what we want to do is we want to just identify the areas you have specialized in. As chairman of ISPAC, I'm a specialist in tax and finance. So I need to be able to come to ISPAC and just get a specific license which allows me to practice as a tax expert, to practice as a finance expert. And then my vice chair is an expert in internal audit and risk. I think then his license is going to be different. The lady, and I think in a comments earlier in the opening session, she said that we are actually at a stage where we are actually developing guidelines, and we are benchmarking widely. And what we want to do is we want to look at what has happened in other jurisdictions. We want to look at the profile of our members and see the scope in terms of what specializations do we have. Then after that, then we are going to have discussions. We are going to have discussions with our members. At the end of the day, the guidelines are expected to come down to all the 23,000 members for their input, because at the end of the day, it's going to affect them. And finally, there was a question on member protection and an issue of the specific professions. I think I'll just mention maybe 3. I think the first one is confidentiality, and I alluded earlier on that one of the biggest challenges which the accountant has been facing in the field is he gets information which can actually help the country fight corruption, but the same accountant has also signed an engagement letter or a letter of employment with an employer which stops him from divulging any information. You know, the so-called confidentiality clauses. So what we are saying now is with the new Accountants Act, the Accountants Act takes precedence over the employer's contracts. And now the accountant has powers to actually walk to his back and give us information, and he's protected. You will not go back to the office and get sacked. If that happens, then I think the law will take its place. And I said earlier, in line with that, then the council quickly put together what we are calling a member protection policy, which is what we are discussing, and that was approved, and that has been cascaded to development of the guidelines, which then are going to guide us going forward. So the next provision will just be on the protection. When we talk about protecting the member, what are we talking about? And again, if you look at the detailed policy, it's elaborate. It elaborates exactly what we are looking at. And finally, the third item I would want to talk about on the member protection is the funding, because when a member brings up an issue, then and the issues take the legal direction, who is going to pay the lawyer? Because sometimes these members are asking the specific proposals to the national treasury on the income tax policy. And I said in my statement that a national tax policy ideally sets the standards. It guides the country in terms of why we need to change the legislation. And the proposals, the specific proposals which we have given to National Treasury is just a proposal to guide National Treasury or the government in terms of identifying the gaps. What are the gaps we are addressing? When we say we want to amend the Income Tax Act, which is ongoing, what are the specific gaps which we want to address? I think it also allows the government and the public at large to also address the issue of incentives. When you say you want to provide these specific incentives to a particular sector, then what will that mean? And are those the incentives which the sector expects? I think those are some of the issues which we have proposed to National Treasury, but it's wider and it's a discussion. So it's a discussion which is continuing. On labor lost, again by Al-Shura, the issue of the government not honoring the CBS, and I think from where we sit, we want to say, I think the government needs to honor. I think it's an agreement which was signed, but in a case where the government is unable to afford, I think what we are requesting is let's go back to the table. Let's go back to the drawing board and sit down with the affected, civil servants and negotiate. Because right now, as nurses and doctors strike, it's the Wanjiko, it's the common mwananchi who is suffering. So I think we are requesting the government to actually just sit on the table and negotiate if it's possible that they are not able to afford the CBS which they are designed with these civil servants. On the outdated financial statements, what does it take for the Auditor General to get it approved? What is the stumbling block? And I don't have an answer for this from the Auditor General's point of view, because I think what I want to say is the Auditor General has done his job. He has done the audits, and the audits have been presented to Parliament. I think it's an issue of Parliament doing its job. The Parliament needs to do its job. From where we sit as an institute, we don't have any information leading to the fact that there is any stumbling block coming from the Auditor General's office. So
perhaps what will be ideal period that the Parliament should take once they receive statements from this office?
Yeah, I think that for me, I think a lag of 1 year maximum. A lag of 1 year maximum should be the maximum. We are talking about 5 years now. So you can imagine even the governor who was elected in 2013, there are some who are not in office and they have not been audited. So the question is then, is there value for money? I think that's a discussion. In terms of capacity of the Auditor General and a possible conflict of interest by our members in the office of the Auditor General, and I think for me there is no conflict of interest because it's a procurement issue, and our members will be everywhere. So if you say there is a conflict of interest in the office of the Auditor General, then there is conflict of interest in every other institution in Kenya, because every other organization, parastatal, public sector, private sector, there's always going to be an accountant. And accountants as a profession, we have some guidelines. We are guided by some specific, safeguards which protect the issue of independence. So for me, I think it will be an issue if, for example, you appointed an auditor who is also doing some work for the Auditor General. And I think that's a discussion we have been having. When they request to get an auditor to audit the Auditor General's office, there are some practitioners, there are some members of ISPAC who will be automatically locked out, because if I'm already doing some job on behalf of Auditor General, then I'm conflicted. But other than that, we have enough members who are not doing work with the Auditor General. The issue of the staff working for the Auditor General is not an issue. And the last question by Paul, the audited accounts, no conclusion. I think it is the same issue we have discussed before, because we said that the last audited accounts were done were approved in 2013, 2014. The other 3 years, 15, 16, 17, have been concluded, but by the Auditor General's office, but they have not been approved by Parliament. So I think it's more of Parliament now than the office of the Auditor General. Yeah.
So thank you. I don't know whether you have a last set of questions. Then